Welcome to Fade to Chat, Golden Age Cinema. I'm Marty Gensiest, joined by my co-host Cindy Rotz, and this episode we go to a city I've never been to, Paris.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to, you haven't been to Paris either?
I almost went in high school, but I didn't make it, no.
Oh, wow. And, you know, if you want everything to look better, supposedly you go to Paris. Stanley Donen's Charade from 1963 is the movie we're talking about today. And it just is as it's been, I think we announced on our previous show, it's the Hitchcock film that Hitchcock never made. And there's so many comparisons in relationship to Hitchcock with this. Stanley Donen, I don't know if he did it intentionally, but he shot this film. It's very, there's a lot of stuff going on in the film. There are a lot of character changes. There are a lot of aliases. There's a lot of surprises. It is really kind of an exceptional film from that era. And it stars Cary Grant, who was 59 at the time, and also Audrey Hepburn, who was 33, playing in pursuit of Cary Grant. And the whole story is interesting. It was directed by Stanley Donen, screenplay by Peter Stone, story by Peter Stone and Mark Bam. Stars Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn, Walter Matthau, James Coburn, George Kennedy, and other assorted cast members. And it is basically a trying to find the $250,000, which at that time in 1963, now it would be $2.5 million if you look for inflation. Cindy, what's your reaction to this film?
Well, this was my choice, and I try not to pick Cary Grant movies all the time, but this one you just have to watch. I mean, it's Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn. They're just such a iconic pairing together. And I know in the past, the movie Rope that we watched, one of our viewers said that he didn't appreciate or didn't think my comment that movie was suspenseful. I said I didn't think that movie was very suspenseful.
Yeah.
Well, this one, it is suspenseful. I think from beginning to end, like you said, there's so many twists and turns, and there's so many different things going on with Cary Grant himself. His name changes. It changes, I think, 4 times. And the 3 men, I had to write them down. The 3 men who are, after the money. And poor Audrey Hepburn, she's so confused. She doesn't know who to believe. So I think it's a very suspenseful movie. Plus, it's also got that romantic feel between the two of them. And as you said, this time, Cary Grant, he's 59. Still looks good to me, but he's 59 and she's 33. So she's the pursuer in this movie rather than him pursuing a woman.
Yeah.
So that's
Cary
a little
Grant,
twist also.
Yeah, Cary Grant didn't want to do this film originally because the script was written that he was kind of this suave, guy that's picking up the women. And he's like, I'm 59 years old. There's no way of looking at it this way. If I'm pursuing a 33-year-old, that's a little creepy. And so they actually rewrote it so she was pursuing him. And, there's we'll talk about the shower piece and all of that as we get in. Cary Grant, as you said, plays Brian Cruikshanks. That, I think, is his real name. His actual name in the movie. But he uses aliases throughout. He keeps changing when certain things are disclosed. He said, well, yeah, that's not my real name. I'm not really Peter Joshua. I'm not really Alexander Dye. I'm not really Adam Canfield. These are all aliases he winds up using as certain plot points get revealed. He has to own up to the fact that he was deceiving Audrey Hepburn with these aliases. Audrey Hepburn plays Regina or Reggie Lampert, who was married to Charles Lampert, and the movie opens up with her finding out it opens up with an interaction with Cary Grant and her on a Swiss Alps or an Alps vacation where they're skiing and kind of enjoying the exterior, and she meets her. What's the relationship?
I think she's just a
Dominique,
friend. Sylvie?
just a friend. Yeah,
She's just a friend, yeah.
with Jean Louise
John Louise,
Thomas,
yeah.
the little boy, and meets them skiing, and you think it's kind of an unintentional meeting, but then they keep meeting up, and you begin to wonder if it's intentional. That's where the aliases fit in, and he winds up being a good guy, a protagonist in the movie, although he has to use all this deception to get there. The basic plot theme with this is that there are four gentlemen, actually five gentlemen, in pursuit of some missing money that occurred during World War II, where they had hidden the money somewhere, or someone had absconded with the money, and it's all tracing back to leading back to Audrey Hepburn's Reggie's husband, Charles Lambert, and they figure Charles Lambert. These guys start to show up at Charles Lambert's funeral, and they figure that Charles Lambert has died. They want to make sure he's dead, and if he doesn't have the money and they don't have the money, then Audrey Hepburn has to have the money. So early on, she comes back. She's informed her husband has died. She goes to her apartment. Her apartment is all ransacked, and they go. The next one of the early scenes is them, Audrey Hepburn, Reggie, with her friend at the funeral, where no one's in attendance, but suddenly these guys start to show up. Ned Glass, who plays Leopold or Leo Gideon, and then you have along with him is Charles Coburn, who shows up, and he shows up at this funeral. What did he do? I think Ned Glass, he as Leo, he just kind of freaked out.
He sneezed and sneezed and sneezed. That was part of his character. He sneezed all over the body, and then he left. Oh no, he sat back down. He did go sit back down.
Yeah.
The second one came in. It was James Coburn, I believe. It was Tex.
Right.
And he put a mirror to his nose to see if he was still breathing. And then he took a flower out of his lapel and put it in the casket with him. And the third one came in. That was George Kennedy. He's the one that had the hook on his hand.
Right.
And he had a straight pin in his collar of his coat. And he took that straight pin out and he stuck it in his hand to see if the body obviously was, dead or not. And Audrey Hepburn was like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
Her reaction was just priceless. So, and he stormed out. The other two stayed, but he stormed out and slammed the door shut. The other two stayed.
And then the movie it kind of introduces Walter Matthau. Mm-hmm. Walter Matthau is acting as a agent within the embassy, and he sends for her to come and talk to her about the issue of the missing money, and they believe that she has the missing money, and he's trying to pursue that with her. She denies it because she doesn't know anything. The only thing that was returned to her husband was at one point, I guess, or early on, thrown off a train.
Mhm.
and with him was his carry bag, his bag that he took with him, a Lufthansa bag, as I remember, that
Mhm.
was that had elements in it, and but nothing that was $250,000, at least observable as $250,000, and so they're all in pursuit of her, thinking that she has hidden the money or gotten the money, and part of I don't want to do too many giveaways, but I guess that's expected here. Part of the thing is you're not really sure about Walter Matthau. He makes a rather convincing agent. That he says agent, not spy. That's kind of a
Right.
running joke through the whole thing. And he makes a convincing role, plays a convincing role as an agent, trying to convince Audrey Hepburn, Reggie, that they are going to somehow find this money, and she's responsible for it because he's sure that her dead husband has somehow passed it on to her or hidden it for her.
Mhm.
So you have these characters, James Coburn, George Kennedy, Ned Glass. You've got Walter Matthau, and then you've got Cary Grant. And Cary Grant is kind of in there initially as kind of an innocent protector
Mhm.
and trying to help her sort through the problem. And the other gentlemen wind up trying to terrorize her, scare her. There are some scenes with George Kennedy that she all has kind of individual interactions with these guys who are apparently looking for the money that she knows nothing about. James Coburn catches her in a phone booth and starts to light matches and kind of drop them on her. And I don't know, Ned Glass, if he did anything too threatening.
He was the one in the nightclub.
Oh, yeah.
After that, it started out to be very funny between, she and Cary Grant. Of course, in the very beginning, there was that heavyset woman that Cary Grant had to take that orange from. That was the game they were playing. They had the orange underneath their chin, and he had to take it from this rather large woman.
Yeah.
That was quite funny. And then he passed it on to Audrey Hepburn, and that was the first time you kind of saw her look at him like, "Oh, I really like you." Because the music kind of stopped and they stopped and looked into each other's eyes, and then it continued. And then when she got the orange from Cary Grant, she turned. The next person was Ned Glass,
Glass.
and he kept whispering into her ear, "You've got the money, and you've got the money, and it belongs to us or belongs to me." And she ended up kicking him in the shins and
Yeah.
running to the phone booth to call Mr. Bartholomew. And that's when Tex came in and was lighting those matches. I didn't understand why she didn't just blow them out. I thought she had time, so just blow the thing out. But he kept dropping them and dropping them and dropping them. She kept wiping them off her dress, and yeah. So
Yeah.
the two of them were at the nightclub that evening.
So help me and help listeners pick up where the plot goes from there.
Well, just an interesting side note. I don't know if you knew this or not. I read that during that nightclub scene, that Audrey Hepburn's real husband, his name was Mel
Melfier.
Ware.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the nightclub. He was sitting there smoking a cigarette,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she
And
smoked 3 packs a day. By the way,
yeah.
in real life,
Melfier.
she smoked three
Yep.
packs a day of cigarettes.
Yeah. Melfier was part of I think you might have known Jose Fier,
Oh,
same
okay,
family, and
okay,
and an actor. And so her husband was related to Mel,
hmm.
or to Jose Fier, and
Jose.
yeah. So, anyways, keep a little bit
Okay,
more of the plot.
so Cary Grant doesn't know what's going on at this time, and she hasn't confided in him. And they go back to the hotel, and I think it was this time she did confide, and finally he said, what is going on? What you've got to tell me. And she basically said, these men are after me. They want the money. I don't know where it is. I don't have it. And he ends up taking the room next to her in the hotel, and he wants to make sure that he can keep an eye on her. And he takes a thread from his sock and he winds it around. He puts like a little thumbtack in the bottom of the door, and he winds the thread from his sock from his door to her door.
Hmm.
And so he knows whenever she leaves that, she's left. He can kind of keep an eye on her. But in the meantime, I don't remember if it was in the beginning. Like I said, this has so many twists and turns. Um, at one point, the three men show up and are demanding, where is this money? And they decide they're going to search all three rooms. And, they said whoever finds it. And the little boy, Jean Louis, was there too, because they had called her room and said, we have something that we think you want. And she said, well, what is it? And they said, we have a little boy here calling for Aunt Reggie. And so
Yeah.
she went over to the room and Jean Louis is there. I thought it was interesting. He actually was an American boy who could speak French or with a French accent, they said.
Yeah. That the reveal that happens, I think, that then twists it even further is you think that Cary Grant's character, I guess Peter Joshua at that point, is
Hmm.
like trying to help her, and then he winds up connecting
Hmm.
with the group, and you're like,
Yeah,
wait a minute, he knows these guys. How
yeah,
does
he
he
knew
know
them.
these guys? And is he just sort of leading her on for that same purpose? And they
Hmm.
even make that
Hmm.
innuendo that he's kind of
Right.
leading her in for to get the money all for himself.
Right.
So yeah,
Because they were
um,
going to split it three ways.
yeah,
And the Scobie, he's the one with the hand. He said, well, I'm not splitting it with Cary Grant. He said, we're not splitting it four ways. We're only going to split it three ways. Yeah, that was a little confusing in the beginning, I thought. I wasn't quite sure how he knew all three of them. And they
yeah,
obviously didn't know he was a
yeah.
good guy and he was with the embassy. They thought, he was part of them.
So this leads to them searching her room and trying to find out, where, and they all agree as a group. Okay, you can go ahead and search our rooms, and
Hmm.
they go through the rooms trying to find different aspects, to see if there's something that looks like the money. And Jean Louis says, well, it's probably hidden up there. And Audrey Hepburn gets up there and up on top of a dresser, high
Hmm.
end dresser, and finds a suitcase, opens it up, but there's really nothing in it, or there was nothing in it when he finally opened it up for us to see.
Well, there was Scobie's spare hand in it,
Ah, that's what it
his
was.
hook.
Yeah,
It was his
yeah.
spare hook because she didn't want John Louis to see it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so
Yeah.
it was not the
No.
$250,000, and then these guys start dying.
Hmm. Can
And
I go back for a second?
yeah, sure.
Because this I didn't catch the first time I watched the movie. When she said, we're going to have a treasure hunt. She said to John Louis, you're going to help me find this missing money. And she said, if it were you, where would you hide the money? And he said, in the garden.
Okay,
And she said, well, we don't have a garden. And then he said, he pointed up above, but they did find the money. the stamps in the
In the stamp,
there
okay,
was an outdoor area. They referred to it as a garden.
garden. Okay, yeah, that's a interesting reference with that too. So these guys start dying through all sorts of ways. There is an attempt by George Kennedy's character to try and kill Cary Grant. There's a rooftop sort of
Hmm.
encounter where they're fighting. Has all sorts of throwbacks to Catch a Thief,
Hmm.
and that movie where Grant is fighting with somebody and they're hanging onto the gutter,
Yeah.
and they're playing out the plot line that way. Poor George Kennedy winds up in his bathtub drowned,
Hmm.
and the guys try to decide what can they do, and they're like, well, can't leave him there. Maybe we can take him and put him in bed, and then somebody else will find him. So they do that, and the next
Yeah.
shot or one of the next scenes is the detective kind of saying, and the detective is played by someone who you should recognize if you don't recognize
Yes.
him.
Yes. Jacques Marin. How do
Jacques
you say that?
Jacques Jacques Marin.
Marin?
Yeah.
Marin. Hmm.
He's Inspector Edouard Grandpierre. And where do you see him? Where have you seen him before?
I was afraid you're going to ask me that. I should know.
He's head
I
guard in How to Steal a Million.
Oh yes, of course he is.
He's the
Yes.
guy that's all for it. Now, he had a really substantial, I went to check his IMDb. He had a really substantial career as a actor in France and a lot of French-based films, but he was in quite a few movies in terms of that. So
Yeah, and he kept saying these men are dying in their pajamas in bed,
yeah,
which
yeah.
didn't make any sense.
And he said, "How does somebody drown in their pajamas
Hmm. In their
as
pajamas
a
in
cause
their
of
bed.
death?" So interesting history, interesting background of that character actor. And as soon as I saw him, it's like that's a familiar face. I don't
You're
know
right.
French actors, but when you have somebody in the role of a French actor, it's sort of like, yeah, that face is familiar. He's probably in something else that I've seen. So
Hmm.
these guys wind up dying over the course of the middle of the film. I think it's George Kennedy that goes first. Then it's Ned Glass, I think, that goes second in the elevator.
In the elevator. They don't show it. He
Yeah.
goes down to like the bottom floor and you hear him sneeze and sneeze and sneeze and then he screams.
Yeah. And I think he says something, you,
Hmm.
and
But they didn't show him.
no, they didn't show who
Mm.
his assailant was in it, but it was somebody that Ned Glass's character, Leopold's character, had known. And
Hmm.
so it comes into question. And so who is this character? There was this character was alluded to in terms of being one of the four characters, Carsondale. Carsondale
Hmm.
was one of the four guys during World War II that had stolen the money, helped steal the money, and he was supposedly fatally injured in the
Hmm.
conflict. And people were pursuing him, and as a result, they it kind of led them to Audrey Hepburn as part of the as potential with it. So we have Walter Matthau in the role of Hamilton Bartholomew, the CIA administrator, and we see George Kennedy's character Herman get drowned. We see Ned Glass's character Leopold die in an elevator. Well, we don't get to see it, but we hear it
Mm-hmm.
off camera. Again, very
Mm-hmm.
very Hitchcockian in the way it was done. And then finally, Tex figures, well, it's got to be those other two guys are dead, so it's got to be Audrey Hepburn that has this money, and Cary Grant's helping her out. And so there's a cat and mouse game there, trying to find out where the money is and who has it until Tex winds up dead. So why don't I'm going to let you do the kind of reveal of where the money was and what happens at this point.
Okay. Well, excuse me. Um, all along, the little boy, Jean Louis, he was always asking Audrey Hepburn to write to him. He apparently collected stamps. And toward the very end of the movie, when she and Cary Grant were in that garden area, they saw Tex there. And Cary Grant thought, why is he here? What is he looking for? And all of a sudden he saw there were all these vendors. It was like an outdoor little market. And he saw the vendor with the stamps, and the light bulb went off. And Tex saw it first. And he rushed back to the hotel to get that envelope, thinking, okay, I know where the money is now. It's in those stamps. And Cary Grant did the same thing. Like, again, all of a sudden he realized, oh my gosh, the money's in those stamps. So he rushed back also to the hotel, and they had this conversation. This was before he died, obviously. He had a conversation, and Tex said to Cary Grant, you're just stupid. He called him all kinds of names. You're a nincompoop, and you're, all kinds of nasty things. And he said, you trusted her, and she batted those big eyes at you. And he showed him the envelope, and the stamps were torn off. So he said, she has the money, she has the stamps, she knew what she was doing. And in the meantime, Audrey Hepburn is still at this little market, and she sees her friend Sylvie is there. And she said, well, Sylvie, what are you doing here? And she said, I'm with Jean Louis. This is where he buys his stamps. And she went, oh my gosh, the stamps. She said, I just gave him those stamps this morning. And so then Audrey Hepburn realized that those stamps was where the money was. And they went to find the vendor that the little boy had, I think he traded the stamps. And he said, look at all, and the vendor was gone. And Jean Louis said, but look at all the stamps this man gave me. He gave me like hundreds of stamps for just 3 of them. And they're like, oh my gosh, what a terrible mistake we've made. So they actually do find the man that gave the stamps to the little boy. And he said, I realized, you didn't do this intentionally, that these stamps,
Yeah.
and he named how much they were worth. One was worth like 65,000, one was worth 85, and one was worth 100. Of course, it added up to $250,000. And he ended up giving those stamps back to Audrey Hepburn. And by the way, I saw another little piece about that. It said that those stamps, some of them were from, um, what was her name? Grace
Princess
Kelly.
Grace.
Princess Grace. Yeah, and that was a nod to Grace Kelly and Cary Grant, I think, in To Catch a Thief, too.
Right.
I heard that she was his favorite actress to work with.
Yeah, and it was the packet that he traded him for. Audrey Hepburn said, "Well, thank you for returning the stamps. Now I do want to pay for these." And he looks
Mm-hmm.
it up. He looks at the packet and he goes, "Well, there's 10 Princess Grace stamps. There's so many of
Mm-hmm.
these, so many of those." So yeah, that line kind of worked into to
Yeah,
make that
Princess Grace
connection.
commemorative
Yeah,
stamps. And
yeah,
they were only worth, all those stamps were only worth like 10 francs.
yeah,
And he gave her back the ones that were worth the $250,000.
So how this ends, they go back and rush back to the hotel, the apartment that, or the room that they're in the hotel, and find that Tex is dead
Texas
and
dead.
hogtied, which I thought
Yeah.
was pretty funny, to
Yeah.
a radiator.
Radiator.
Yeah, yeah, a room, for steam,
Yeah.
a radiator for the room for heating the room, and apparently he had written "Dyle" Dyle on the floor in the dust around the radiator, and that leads him to believe that they're led to believe that Dyle is, and it points towards Cary Grant because he has described himself as being Carson Dyle's brother at that point. So she thinks it's Dyle because he's changed his name so many times and it's Cary Grant's character. He's changed his name so many times that she attempts to call up Hamilton Bartholomew, the Walter Matthau role, and tries to get him to say, I've figured this out. I've got this, I've got I think I don't think she says stamps. I think she says, I have the money or have it.
Well, I think she does because he says, "You bring the stamps and meet me."
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I
And
think he does know she has the stamps.
so, in her attempt to call the office, and I missed this, I've seen this film probably 3 or 4 times, and I missed
Hmm.
this. In her attempt to call the office to get a hold of Hamilton, she gets a hold of Hamilton's secretary, and she has to explain who she is. She says it's a matter of life and death. Please get up. Well, he's out somewhere, blah, doing some things. And then there's a scene where they cut to her contacting the actual Hamilton Bartholomew at a party or at a gathering, and he's on the phone and he's like, I don't know who this woman is. I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds like something you need to turn over to the French police
Hmm.
to investigate. I don't think the police ever show up until
No, they
at all.
didn't. They didn't.
So then you're like, okay, if this guy's not, Walter Matthau's not a CIA agent, who is he?
Who is he?
And the reveal is as they're chasing through what appears to be a theater, and he's trying to get the stamps from her. Cary Grant's trying to save her, but she doesn't believe Cary Grant and doesn't know who to
Hmm.
believe, so she decides to just run. It's revealed that he is Carson Dyle, who did not die, was badly injured, wound up going to a concentration camp for many years, and was released from the concentration camp and decided that he was going to get revenge on all of these folks, his colleagues who left him there and took the money. Cary Grant has to intervene and tries to find a way to disrupt his attempted attack or attempt to shoot Reggie, Audrey Hepburn. And there is a scene where he pulls a lever and he falls through the stage. Walter Matthau. And
Hmm.
I look at that and I'm like, okay, he might break a leg or break a knee, but I don't think it'd
Yeah,
kill
I
him.
guess we don't know. They didn't really say he died, but you're right. Um,
It's it's a
yeah,
fall. It's maybe
it's a fall.
estimate height, maybe,
It's a big
15,
fall.
20 feet. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
that bothered me the first time I saw it. It bothered me because all you see him fall and hit the ground and lay down. I mean, you
yeah,
don't see his face, you don't see anything, and it's sort of like, well,
that's true.
how, How did he die? I want to know. So you go ahead and finish the how this
Okay.
all turns around at the end.
Okay. So you're right. She runs to the opera house and she's hiding in this prompt booth. And Carson Dial, who's Walter Matthau, he walks across, and Cary Grant is in another area, and he's looking at the ceiling, and that's how he figures out. He's listening to the footsteps, and he figures out, which one he lands on, which is A4 or something like that, and he pulls the trap door, and then he falls down through there. But you're right, and I thought it looked kind of, I don't want to say hokey, but he kind of just like his knees buckled and he fell down. It's like they never said anything more about it. You just assumed
Yeah, we
that
know Walter Matthau is
that was
is
it.
really well known for his stunt action.
Yeah, exactly. So, um, so of course now Audrey Hepburn, they know that she's got the stamp. She knows where the money is, and Cary Grant. She says, "Well, we're going to return the money, these stamps, to the embassy, where they belong." And Cary Grant is still posing, and saying, well, he wouldn't reveal his true identity yet. He said, "Why do you want to return that? They're not gonna miss it. It's going to take them more to fix up their bookkeeping than it would take for you to return those stamps." In other words, he's trying to see if she's going to do
Yeah,
the right thing or not. So they go to the embassy the next day, and she stops I think it's a Marine in the front of the embassy, and asks for directions. And Cary Grant kind of turns away because he doesn't want him to recognize him.
yeah,
And she says, "Where can I take these?" And he directs them to the office, which was um, his last name, Brian Cruikshank, to his
yeah.
office. And so she goes in and she says, "I'd like to um, return these stamps if Mr." Well, she still says Mr. Does she still say Mr. Bartholomew? I don't think she knows at that point. She says, "I'm here to return this to Mr. Bartholomew." I can't
Yeah,
quite though.
I can't. I'm not sure.
Okay. Anyway, she goes into the office, and Cary Grant stays outside. He said, I just can't bear it. Like, all this money." And she goes in, and when she goes in, Cary Grant, of course, is sitting at the desk, and he makes this crazy face at her, like, you know, he makes kind of sticks his tongue out, makes this crazy face, like, "Oh, here I am, it's me." And she's like, "Well, who are you now?" And he finally says, "I am Mr. Crookshank,
Yeah,
and you know, I work here, and I really am a good guy, and give me those stamps." And she says, "Well, how do I know this is really who you are? You've been lying to me all along. You've had all these different names." So he picks up the telephone and he talks to his secretary, and he says, "From now on, take a memo. All the offices should be locked during the lunch hour." Because that's how Walter Matthau got into the office to begin with. It was during the lunch hour, and that's how he impersonated Bartholomew. So at the very end, he says, "I'm really a good guy, and give me those stamps." And she says, "Well, what is your name now?" And he says, "Brian Crookshank." And she said, "Well, it would just serve me right if I got stuck with a name like that."
yeah.
And she kept pressuring him and pressuring him, like, "What? How? Prove it, prove it, prove it. Show me some real identification that this is your real name." And he said, "Well, next week I'll put it on the marriage license." And she went, "Oh, you know." And then she promised that, they would have she said, "I hope we have lots of little boys so we can name them all after you: Joshua, Peter, Adam, all the different names that he went through."
But the running gag through the movie is this idea that she always asks him when he comes up with a new name, "Is there a Mrs.?"
Oh, Yes.
And he, all through the movie's like, and he's like, no, she passed away, or, no, we're
We're
divorced.
divorced. We're
We're
divorced.
divorced. Yeah. And then in this final scene, she goes, is there a Mrs. Crookshanks? And he goes, yes.
Yes.
And he opens up his wallet and says, this is my mother, Mrs. Crookshanks. She'd probably like you, and you'd like her too.
Yeah. She lives in Detroit.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, kind of a fun film. Lots of twists. This is one that I would highly recommend people find and take a listen to, watch it. And I don't think what we've talked about would ruin the experience for anybody, because this movie is cut pretty tight. Brian, one of our regular listeners, sent us an email and said, this is a great film, little slow in the middle. And I don't know what scenes he was referring to, but I think it might have been the riverboat trip where they're talking about their relationship, and the walk along the river where she spills the ice cream on him, and that kind of stuff might have slowed it down a bit. There's also a part of this when George Kennedy gets killed first. It's like, okay, this is going to be like 10 little Indians, except it's 3 little Indians. We're gonna knock off George Kennedy, then the other guy's got to get knocked off, and then the third guy has to get knocked off, and then we can finally get a plot reveal on it. So from a formula, you could maybe predict what's going to happen next in the movie when people start dying in it. And so, yeah, I can see places where Brian might have a point with that it could be a bit of a challenge. Wow, we kind of reviewed the whole film, but I do want to see if there are trivia pieces that you want to drop in this.
Well, I mentioned that her husband
Yeah.
was in the nightclub scene. I mentioned about the stamps and the Princess Grace reference. Yeah, and again, I read this and I thought I had to think back about it. That the answer to the whole mystery, the stamps, really, if you pay attention in the very beginning of the movie, it's all about those stamps and Jean Louis, the little boy, and the fact that Audrey Hepburn is writing to him, and those stamps are discovered in the garden.
Yeah.
It's not a garden as you and I think of a garden, but they referred to it as the Jardin des Champs-Élysées, in the garden. And that's where he had been going to buy those rare stamps. I know I butchered that. But,
Yeah, I never having taken French or really understanding
but
the
you wouldn't
language.
know it.
We need to, yeah, I mean, we need to find a movie that is in German. That I can pronounce. I took too much
You can do
German
that.
during my career.
Oh, I did read that Charles's real name was Charles Voss. Remember I think
Mm-hmm.
Walter Matthau said that at one point. And I read that Voss, you may know this already, Voss means fox in Lower German. And they did that intentionally because fox is considered like a cunning kind
Yeah.
of animal.
Cary Grant initially turned down the film. We
Hmm.
talked about that in terms of his age difference. It was considered briefly for Warren Beatty and Natalie Wood before Grant came back. More
No,
age closer, kind of too. I don't know if that would have worked.
I like Natalie Wood, but Warren Beatty not as much. No,
Yeah.
it was
So
a beautiful location, Paris. I enjoyed
yeah,
all the scenery in Paris.
Grant and Walter Matthau each played Walter Burns in the film adaptation of The Front Page, and Grant did it in His Girl Friday in 1940. That's one next time we cycle back, there are a couple of Grant films I still want to pick up on, and His Girl Friday,
Okay.
a Howard Hawks film, very fast dialogue. That was Howard Hawks was known for. I want to watch and see, and then Walter Matthau, The Front Page, which is sort of out of our range in terms of dates that we typically do with it. So
I like His Girl Friday.
yeah, yeah. We we've talked about some other films that we're gonna do and throwbacks with. Lots of Hitchcock echoes with this movie. Animated credits at the beginning. Saul
Oh, yeah.
Bass, who's kind of known as an artist, did the Vertigo titles and the kind of spin
Hmm.
and spiral stuff that occurs with the titles in this film.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting in the very beginning, all the credits. It
Yeah,
was very colorful and energetic, and like you said, it was very similar to Vertigo in that respect.
yeah. Um,
And North by Northwest too.
yeah, there's a shower scene where
Yeah.
Grant is also kind of washing in his clothes in North by Northwest. So it's a throwback to
Yes.
that. That was 1959, so it wasn't too far from this movie that they reused sort of the same gag that was used
Yeah.
by Hitchcock. Um,
Yeah. And when he was hanging by the his hands when he
yeah,
was fighting with the guy, that was similar to North by Northwest too.
yeah.
A lot of similarities.
Plagued throughout this whole movie is the theme song Charade. And there are parts, and I forget what movie it was, that Cary Grant is whistling it
Hmm.
in one of the films that I think that we saw.
Walk, don't run.
Oh, Walk Don't Run. Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
I watched that recently. That was supposedly his last film. Have you ever seen Walk Don't Run?
I'm not sure. It was 1966. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
while he was making his morning coffee. I'm pretty sure I have. I can't
yeah,
recall it right now, but I'm pretty sure I
yeah.
have.
Storyline is he's a businessman that works back and forth in Japan. He has plants in Japan, and he comes
Oh,
during
yes.
the Japanese Olympics. And so
Olympics,
it's all
yes.
shot around that, and people are trying to find rooms, and he gets a room, and with a
Yes.
young woman who's letting him there, and then another athlete, I forget the character's name or the actor's name, he gets a room with him and shares a room, and
Hmm. Hmm.
Cary Grant really plays the matchmaker in that movie, and it's
Yeah.
kind of neat. It's kind of a fun,
Yes.
light comedy with
Forgotten
all
that one.
different kinds of cultural implications in it. So yeah, I don't know what
Did
else we can
did you
share.
notice?
Yeah,
Well, I noticed I read this and I had to go back and watch it again. That scene where I think it was when she and Cary Grant were eating ice cream and walking along, the river, and she, dropped her ice cream on him. She talked about being assassinated, and I read that they changed that in the theaters because that was, right after Kennedy's
Kennedy.
assassination, but they didn't change it in the film. She still said they both said assassinated rather than killed.
Hmm.
That they dubbed that out in the movie theaters.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I did hear that. And there were some other films that were adjusted for sensitivity.
Hmm.
I know there were films that were adjusted for sensitivity uh, with uh, with 9/11, but there are also other
Oh.
films that were adjusted for sensitivity with the Kennedy's assassination.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I learned a new word during this movie, which, again, you'll probably say Cindy should have known this, but I didn't know this. I did not know about a MacGuffin. I
Yeah.
had not heard that before.
It's the object that everybody's chasing after that really is never defined, that you really don't
Mm-hmm.
care about because it's what's being chased.
Right.
North by
So,
Northwest is an example of that, with the little clay object that people are chasing, and then when it breaks open, it's got microfiche in it, and it's sort of like, well, what's the microfiche about? Who cares?
mm-hmm.
It was important enough for the film. Yeah, yeah. My
Yeah.
One of my film professors in college was like a big Hitchcock fan, and so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was a term that it's a term that a lot of people wouldn't know. So don't feel like, Cindy,
Okay.
you should have
Feel
known this.
better.
But try that. Try that experiment. Walk down the street or find some people that you know and say, "Do you know what a MacGuffin is?" And they'll probably think it's you're asking them if it's something lewd. But it was Hitchcock called it that, and defined it as such, as I remember, as I just said, as I remember it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yes. Did you have any favorite quotes or scenes in the movie we haven't talked about?
No. Again, I was surprised that I had not made the. I had either was not paying attention, but the party call where uh, Bartholomew's like, I don't know this woman. I've never had any contact with this woman. I missed that in previous viewings of it, and just kind of the reveal about Walter Matthau came as a bigger surprise for me.
Mm.
So that I do like the continued throwback to, is there a Mrs. Whatever? That's kind
Yeah.
of that always feels like a lot of fun when that happens.
Hmm.
So
I had one quote I wrote down, and probably because I can relate to it as a woman. I mean, Audrey Hepburn is beautiful, but she's so thin. But she
hmm
was eating all the time. If you ever noticed, even Cary Grant made a comment. He said, "We've only had 5 meals today." She was always eating. Whenever, whenever she was unhappy, she would eat. But
yeah,
then when she was happy, she would lose her appetite. And in the very beginning, her friend Sylvie, when Audrey Hepburn said, "I'm getting a divorce, I'm divorcing Charles," she said, "Well, it's just infuriating that your unhappiness does not turn to fat." In other words, she had this big plate full of food in front of her, eating all this food, and she's as thin as a rail. So I could relate to that. It's like, yeah, you can just eat like a 5, 6 meals a day. Your unhappiness does not turn to fat.
yeah, yeah. I'm being a stress eater, and being overweight is a kind way of putting it. I can relate to that in terms of stress eating. Um, so is that it for a wrap? You think?
I guess so.
What are we doing next time?
Oh, we are switching gears completely, and we're doing all about Eve.
Yeah, a classic film. I think I've seen it once. And I
Me too.
saw it sort of, I don't want to say under duress, but everybody was talking about it. And I started watching it and couldn't stop watching it. It was,
Mm-hmm.
about fame, essentially, and how
Mm-hmm.
fame kind of overtakes personality. Written by and directed by, well, Joseph L. Mankiewicz and Mary Orr wrote it, and directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz, starring Bette Davis, Ann Baxter, and George Sanders in the role in roles in this. Yeah, it's Celeste Holm is in it. There are some other. Marilyn Monroe is in it,
Oh,
actually.
yes, she is. Yes, she
Um,
is a very young Marilyn Monroe.
Eddie Fisher. This came out in 1950, and is considered a very classic movie in terms of it. But again, I think I've seen it
Mm-hmm.
only once. And if I remember the storyline, it's a actor's assistant who then starts to take over identity. And it's not creepy horror stuff. It's just
Oh no. Mm-mm.
how Image is a victim in Hollywood for a lot of people in the process. And Mankiewicz, who had done plenty of work in Hollywood, could have easily scripted this film and based it on any number of actresses or actors that he worked with during that period of time. So next time, All About Eve, 1950, and we'll have that on Fade to Chat. So join us on the next Fade to Chat, whether you're watching the video version of this, and we'll put a lot of trivia and information about this film in the show notes of both the video and the audio version of this. So if you want to pick up on some of that, just check out the show notes on this episode and any episodes that we do. But next time we're going to do All About Eve, and we'll revisit another classic from Hollywood's golden age. You can email us like Brian did at thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com. If you have comments or questions, please subscribe to us on youtube.com/@fade to chat. That the subscriptions, we don't get any money for it, but it's just kind of a nice thank you if you subscribe and give us a thumbs up or give us a like. Anything that you can do to kind of continue this process for us is greatly appreciated. Check out all the other shows that are done that are part of the podtalk.net. There's some really fun shows like 15-Minute Bites. And then there's a lot of tech shows too. So if you're interested in tech, you'll find that at the podtalk.net. So join us next time where style, story, and the cultural moment collide in ways that still echo today. And remember to keep the projectors rolling.